Thanks for that introduction. Welcome, guys. We really appreciate the chance to get together today and get you introduced to the 9 top sales technology issues that we're hearing out in the industry today. I thought it would make sense just to give you guys a brief introduction to inside sales and what we're all about. If you're not familiar with us, we are actually the leading provider of sales acceleration solutions, and I like to say solutions versus technology. We do have a number of technology solutions that aid and assist with sales efficiency, but beyond those technologies, we also have best practice process and procedures that we've come up with over the years of deploying sales acceleration solutions. So it's a combination of not only technology but also best practices. So just to give you a quick introduction to us, you can see a few of our major clients out in the market space today. We are working with major technology firms, and I'll get into some of the financial service providers as well in a few slides out. Our company as a whole is growing at an extremely rapid rate, over 100% per year for each of the last 4 years, and there's a reason for that. There's a lot of change sort of afoot in the digital sales space, and we'll talk about that as well. We've got significant partners in the market space. Probably the one that's most pertinent and relevant is Salesforce.com. If you ever have the chance to visit the App Exchange at Salesforce.com, you'll typically see InsideSales.com listed as one of the top 2 to 3 providers within the App Exchange. So obviously we've got a very tight alignment with Salesforce, and in fact, in our last investment round listed below, Salesforce actually took a position in Inside Sales, made an investment in us as an early stage investor. So as you might expect, we're very much in lockstep with Salesforce, and our solutions work in a seamless way together. Beyond that, a number of awards detailed here, and maybe the most important information really relates to our IP patents that we have in place. I believe we have 7 unique patents out there that address some of the unique things we do in technology as a part of our solution. I mentioned that we're growing rapidly. Again, just to give you a sense of what's happening out in the sales field and the sales enablement field, across the years, inside sales has been really a fairly minor attribute of the sales group or sales structure. Typically, sales teams for sophisticated sales of sophisticated solutions have utilized field-based teams to do the bulk of their selling, and those field-based teams are fairly expensive, fairly high-end personnel, and traveling a good bit as part of their selling undertakings. What we've seen in the last 5 years actually has been 100% growth in that inside sales space. What we're finding with the advent of Google and GoToMeeting and LinkedIn and sort of digital tools that are available is that you can get a lot more done with an inside team than you could in the past. It also makes a whole lot of sense, just looking at it rationally, that you would want to have your inside team doing the early stage qualification of sales activity and really preserve that expertise that's out in the field for the very final closing of well-qualified opportunities. So what we're seeing is a lot of acceleration in the inside space due to the cost and efficiency and actually sort of speeding of the sales cycle process. So that's been a big driver in our business. I think that's a trend that's going to continue for the next foreseeable future. So just to show a few of our clients in the financial services space, this will give you a sense of who we work with. We have diverse makeup of clients within brokerage, insurance, merchant services, banking, across the realm, credit card as well. So we've got a number of different financial services use cases, and on my next slide I'll take you through some of the details of how our solutions have been deployed within a financial services specific space and what the benefit delivered has been. So here's 3 case studies. First, I'll start with Fidelity Investments. I think everybody's fairly familiar with the name. We work with a specific group within Fidelity that provides 401k services. So if you think about your 401k being administered at the corporate level, that's what this team is charged with doing. They're out selling to chief financial officers. Their selling objective when they make calls to the CFO is to actually book an appointment with a more senior closer who would be in the region and come on site and provide a more detailed sales proposal as far as Fidelity's 401k services. So with the advent of our sales acceleration platform, Fidelity's bumped up the productivity of their sales team quite a bit. They've actually been able to achieve 35% more appointments with the same number of sales agents by utilizing our platform. And just to give you a sense of their scale of their operation, they're right at 40 advisors today. Voya Financial is another client of ours, and they're obviously providing wholesale fund services to a number of different independent financial advisors. And what we're seeing through the use of our platform is a dramatic increase in the amount of actual talk time that their advisors are having as they make those calls out in the field. They've actually bumped up the talk time average by over 24%. And that's a significant metric for them, is something that they're very much looking to achieve because of the nature of the financial services sector. They are definitely speaking with those advisors, providing them recommendations on products and services that would be appropriate. So you can imagine that that's a pretty involved discussion that does take a bit of time to achieve successfully if you've got somebody that's engaged and interested. So we consider that a great metric to improve upon. The third use case that I'll mention here is TSYS. That's part of Total Systems, or that's the abbreviation for Total Systems. They are the nation's largest merchant services provider. And what you're doing as a merchant service provider, if you're not familiar with that market sector, is providing point-of-sale devices and accepting credit card payment. So if you can think about the environment that they're selling to retail institutions that need to accept payments. It is a very competitive environment, and they have shifted from being a almost entirely field-based sales team to a mix of inside and outside specialist type sales structure. What they found was the outbound sales production produced through utilization of our sales acceleration platform bumped up by 27%, and that's measured in terms of meetings and sales achieved, as well as pipeline progression. So they have had fantastic success. Again, to give you a sense of the size of their operation, they have roughly 55 different sales folks that are working in an inside sales capacity. If you're not familiar with where inside sales fits and actually what sales acceleration means, this is a pretty handy graphic that attempts to explain it. If you think about sales as a funnel, which many of us do, the top of that funnel is where your marketing group is actually trying to create leads, and they're doing so nowadays through the use of web-based tracking technology. So If you're familiar with Marketo or Eloqua or ExactTarget, those are solutions that automate the tracking of traffic into your website, download of papers. They're sort of looking at the footprints that might be left behind by potential leads that are interested in looking at the site. So that's sort of a machine-based tracking process at the top of the funnel. Once those leads come into the process, you then have a requirement to have human-to-human interaction. So if you think about it, somebody downloads a white paper on your website, that information is passed on to a salesperson. They follow up on that web page download, that white paper download, and they ask, if there's further information or assistance that they can provide. And at that point, they're looking to actually qualify the opportunity, learn a little bit more about it, and begin the selling process sort of on a human-to-human basis. That's where inside sales resides. That's where sales acceleration resides. What we're doing there is trying to speed that entire contact process. We're also not only attempting to speed and add efficiency, but we're also looking to add intelligence to the process such that you reach out to the very best folks at the most appropriate times. If we can add that layer to your CRM, we can see greatly improved sales production results, and that's sort of at a high level where we fit within the CRM and marketing space. This next slide really relates to the machine-based learning platform that is inherently part of our solution. Sometimes it's not quite evident, but if you look sort of underneath the covers of the sales acceleration platform, you'll find that we're doing a great bit of neurolytic learning, predictive analytic work, regression analysis, machine-based learning, all in an effort to be more intelligent about the various aspects of your selling operation. So as an example, we're looking at how to more intelligently score and prioritize who you call, when you call, what's going to render the most successful outcome, etc. We're also looking at the best time to call as far as the communication process and how you actually achieve your telephone outbound campaign process. We're also looking at engagement tracking. So if you think about how to best utilize email, we're tracking that, we're learning from that, we're trying to become more intelligent, we're trying to refine what works best within your operation such that we can render the very highest result. We also make use of the same neurolytic technology to try to learn from your sales staff. So, what motivates them in the most effective way? As you look at our gamification platform, it's providing suggestions, it's providing encouragement to the sales team throughout the day to achieve their individual KPIs. And different people react and respond to different types of motivation. Maybe it's the cheerleading coach versus the understanding parental advice. In either case, we try to understand that and provide the most motivational messages that are going to be responded to by your salespeople based upon their individual profile. Finally, we take that same neurolytic technology, and we've just recently developed a solution called Sales Indicator that can actually learn from your salespeople that are successful and determine, based upon success in the past, what future hires should look like. So very simply, if we can profile your top performers, we can then identify the future top performers that might be interviewing with your firm. And again, the engine is an ongoing learning process machine. We're making use of consortium data as well as the customer's unique data to become more proficient and prescriptive with what we recommend as the next step, within the individual procedure that we just detailed. We're looking at a number of different demographic dimensions, demographics, psychographics, histographics, even weather patterns and things of that sort, to determine what corollaries relate to the individual and how they might perform as far as predicting the very best path or outcome for a given situation. And, again, these are the outcomes that we can affect. If we can increase the number of contacts, if we can increase the number of conversations that we can have, that can actually lead to improved closing rates. And, with that, obviously, you're getting improved efficiency and productivity out of your sales team. If we can actually hire on a more accurate and predictive, prescriptive basis, then we're going to see higher quota achievement from your team. So each of these areas has a direct, hard dollar impact on your selling operation. As I mentioned, as far as our data itself, we're looking at a number of different elements. We have captured across the years billions of transactions for various sales operations doing business in all different vertical markets. And we're looking at, again, firmographic, demographic, geographic, psychographic, and even histographic information, looking for patterns and corollaries that would determine the best way to handle a given situation. And I always shudder when this slide comes on. It reminds me of those billboards that you see with the national debt sort of ticking away and churning away. But fortunately, this isn't the national debt. This is meant to emulate the number of transactions that we've captured across time as we've developed our data stores and our learnings. All right, so that's just a little bit about inside sales. Let's go ahead and shift gears and move into our topic here, where we talk about the top 9 technology selling issues that we're all faced with. Just to give you a sense of the background for this research, we have, beyond the 10 billion transactions that I just showed you on the previous screen, we have 2,000 clients that we've deployed the solution across. So we were looking at their metrics, we're looking at their pain points, we're surveying them. We've also done quite a bit of research, published papers with Harvard Business Review and MIT. So we've got quite a wide data store of sources that we utilize to develop this list of top selling issues. So let's go ahead and dive right into it. As you might expect, the very number one issue or challenge out there in technology selling today is a lack of quality leads. I don't think there's any sales organization that suffers from too many leads. It's typically just the opposite. And when they do have those leads come in, there's a challenge to follow up in a timely basis. There's quite a few lead circumstances and situations that do require a timely outreach based upon somebody expressing interest. If you think about anything that's competitive, let's maybe use a mortgage loan as an example. People are shopping rates. Chances are if somebody has an interest in that, it's really a matter of who will respond to them first or second with information that will have the greatest propensity to close that loan in the future. So being timely, following up is very key as a consideration. We'll talk more about some of the metrics. Finally, beyond actually being in contact with that lead, there's a huge challenge out there in the CRM space to have accurate tracking of what actually happened. And we get into the age-old challenge between marketing and sales, a bit of a push-pull between those two. Typically there's a little bit of friction because marketing feels like they're providing good leads, and sales, feels that those leads are low in quality, and there's sort of a debate about who's doing what with those leads. What's really necessary is that you have a clear and distinguishable audit path to know marketing passed the lead over, it happened at this time and date, follow-up from sales occurred at this time and date, the outcome was A, B, or C. having that accuracy allows marketing to then basically track and understand what the result of their various campaigns were on sales and sales progress. Once you sort of migrate beyond the lead process and the lead qualification process, it really all comes down to sales conversations. That is a huge metric, probably the most pressing within the outbound sales group. So increasing that has a direct relative impact on sales outcomes and sales success. Beyond that, keeping your sales team motivated and actually focused on what you're trying to achieve is the number 5 issue we've seen out there in the market space of late. It's quite easy to have motivated salespeople, but if they're driving towards the wrong KPIs, if they're spending time on things that are not sort of top priorities for the selling organization, then really their time is not being utilized in an optimal fashion. And that ties right into eliminating wasted time. There's quite a bit of wasted time out there in the selling process these days. We'll talk a little bit about some of those metrics as we go through some of the blind spot information here. Number 7 is, to me, the most key opportunity out there for every sales organization that's making use of CRM today. What we need to have, in my opinion, and from what I've heard from my clients, is objective measurement of the entire sales effort for each salesperson. If you ask salespeople to report on their progress, if you ask salespeople to tell you when they make phone calls or record emails, you're never going to have accurate, objective assessment of that effort. So you really need an objective way to track and automate the count and sort of accumulation of effort by each salesperson on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly basis. Interday motivation of specific sales performance, to me, lines up fairly closely with number 5, but I guess it's a little bit nuanced from that, and that is allowing sales team objectives to be shifted throughout the day. So, in the morning, maybe we have a heavy, intense focus on accommodating inbound opportunities. Maybe in the afternoon we shift to outbound contact and we're all about having live conversations. Those are different metrics, those are different objectives, and getting the sales team to sort of turn on a dime based upon the desired intraday focus is something that a lot of sales organizations are telling us they have difficulty with. Number 9 is doing a better job with hiring. As you do interviewing and candidate review, it can be very challenging these days. With the internet comes the ability for sales candidates to do a lot of very quick research on the situation they're about to interview for. So they come in with a bit more information, may look a bit more impressive than they would otherwise without access to all that data. And really, as a sales executive, maybe interviewing a salesperson as a candidate, it's really important that you know what constitutes a successful salesperson within your organization. If you know what that sort of cookbook of ingredients is, then you can do a much better job of hiring candidates who are going to succeed within their selling capacity at your company. And every company is different, right? So we're not all selling the same products with the same sales cycle, with the same process. There's nuances associated with each company's product and sales cycle. So it's very important that you get a beat on and identify, how to hire on a more intelligent basis. If you think about it, there's a huge opportunity just to bump up your overall sales result if you have less turnover. So we'll just make it that simple. So those are the top 9. Let's. I got a bonus here for you guys. Number 10. So beyond the 9, I've got a throw in for you, and that is if we can actually track and blueprint what top performers do on a daily basis as far as their selling activity, then you can take that blueprint back out to the rest of the team and see improved results within their performance. And when we talk about blueprinting, we're not talking about, who'd you call. We're talking about what was the composition of your day. What amount of time did you spend calling versus emailing versus doing demonstrations versus researching customer questions, etc. If you can look at that composite, how the day is allocated, what delivers the very best sales result across time, again, you can then take that, departmentalize it, take it out to your sales team, and provide that as a blueprint for other salespeople to work from. All right, so after looking at those top 9 plus 1 bonus, now it maybe is worthwhile to give you a little bit of the research and data points that we see out there. We view some of this upcoming information as blind spots. These are areas within the selling organization that are maybe low-hanging fruit or maybe hard dollar opportunities for improvement. So we've got some very interesting statistics that we've gathered over the past 10 years. And I'll share a few of those with you. I think as you think about them and we visit on these, you'll see that there's lots of opportunity out there if you just sort of focus in on some of these key metrics. And as I go through these metrics, again, this is just a snapshot of the data that we researched across time, the number of calls. You can see it was a very healthy sample set that we utilized to actually develop this research from. So within our Harvard Business Review research, which we just showed some of the background for that research, one of the most surprising things that we found in that study was just how dramatic the ability to qualify a lead is impacted by the response time to that lead. So if I'm in your website and I download maybe a white paper, again, we'll stick with mortgage banking as an example, looking at interest-only products on a jumbo mortgage type offering. Let's say I download something on that. Chances are I'm also perusing information at other lenders' sites. So what we have found is the ability to be in contact with that downloaded lead or expressed interest. Somebody raised their hand and said, I'm interested. You have a 21 times greater opportunity to close that sale if you're in touch with them within 5 minutes or less. Now you might be surprised to learn that the typical response time to somebody loading information or requesting information or raising their hand on your company's products or services is typically 48 hours. So think about that mortgage banking example. XYZ Bank is in touch within 5 minutes, begins the process of explaining their products and services, maybe even moves into an early stage underwriting process. Meanwhile, a day and a half later, ABC Bank is in touch, following up on their lead. Who do you think is most likely to succeed as far as writing that loan? Our research has shown that the odds are dramatically shifted in your favor if you're in touch within that 5-minute time frame. So we'll take it a step further. Beyond being in touch in a timely way with immediate response, what we also find is that many prospects are never contacted, and then that may not be for lack of trying. It may simply be for lack of persistence. So what we have found is that a lead that expresses interest will typically be called on 2 to 3 times on average, maybe 4 at the high end. And unfortunately, it typically takes up to 6 attempts before you have sort of the maximum contact with those leads. Some people download the paper and they don't want to have a conversation, so you can call 15 times and it's not going to have an impact. But on average, our statistics show that if you can have that follow-up persistence take place across a regulated time frame, 4 to 5 days, and with regulated persistence, 4 to 6 attempts, you will have the very highest rate of contact. And obviously you can do much better than contacting only 27% of those prospects. Now, let's sort of stick with the contact process. If you think about it, you're trying to reach somebody who's expressed interest in your products. We'll stick with the mortgage example. If I am phoning you, and maybe my lead is located in San Francisco, California, just to pick a location, and maybe I'm calling them from Austin, Texas. If I am calling them with an 800 number, they're very unlikely to pick up that phone. What we have found is that if I can phone somebody from Austin, Texas and San Francisco and show them, have my call come in as a 415 prefix, which is the San Francisco area code, then my likelihood of reaching that person goes up dramatically. What we have found is if you can send out a local caller ID on calls wherever you're calling nationwide, you can improve your correct contact rate by 29%. If you think about the conversations that flow, that's a huge improvement. I mean, it's all about having that live contact take place. And we have found, again, that by outpulsing a local ID number on that phone number, people are much more likely to pick it up. Think about, yourself. I know how I respond when I see a local prefix on a number calling me. I'm thinking, okay, that could be one of the kids at school. It could be maybe some work I'm having done on my car, maybe a local mechanic, all sorts of different reasons that somebody locally might be calling me. So I'm much more prone to pick up that call versus, just let it go to voicemail. This was one of the most surprising statistics that I found, and that is that only 13% of our sales team is fully engaged at work. And let me define what engage means. What we define engagement to mean is they're aware of the corporate goals and objectives, they're aware of their own goals and objectives, and they're focused on accomplishing those throughout the day. This is a really extremely sort of unacceptable low rate. And when we think about that, you think about the things that keep salespeople from being focused throughout the day. First of all, they're spending a lot of time, maybe finishing one activity, trying to properly document what transpired, and then researching what they're going to do on their next activity. So just staying focused on sort of the overall key metrics or objectives throughout the day can be a challenge. And we've seen this in many sales organizations. And honestly, it's something that is even more challenging with the more recent sales teams. The millennials that are coming into our sales teams now are extremely difficult to keep engaged and focused. They're very accustomed to lots of activity, lots of engagement happening out there, and you have to sort of keep their attention to keep that focus at an optimal level. What we have found is that gamification techniques and technologies do a great job of achieving this. So within, for instance, gamification, you can, for instance, show the key metrics, where they stand within peer groups, how they're progressing, what position do they rank within the team, how many additional KPIs do they need to achieve to move into a top position, as an example, or maybe earn a badge or an achievement or a spiff. So we find that this real-time feedback has gotten to be very critical as far as keeping the team engaged and sort of pressing forward at an optimal rate throughout the day. Along the same lines, if you think about it, not nearly enough of a sales rep's time is today actually spent selling. In fact, 2/3 of a salesperson's day, our studies show, are spent on 3 different activities. So sales activity itself is one of those. But if you think about a salesperson, they're spending quite a bit of time researching what their next activity is going to be. So, maybe I'm going to phone somebody. I want to look at the latest information. I want to make sure that this is the right person to call versus another person before I log that call. Once I log the call, have the conversation, or don't have the conversation, I then spend the other 30 to 35% of the time dispositioning the results of what happened. So we had a conversation, we talked about the following topics, we agreed that I would do A, B, and C, and so on. So if you think about it, there's sort of a 3-step process there as far as making sales interactions happen throughout the day. And when we look at that problem set, when we look at only getting 1/3 of the day production-wise out of a salesperson, it really leads us to believe that salespeople spend way too much time trying to determine what their next activity should be. Our research here and our solutions have shown that if management can direct and sort of sort their activities, take that guesswork out of the mix, we can give them back 30% of their day. If we can go a step further and after their calls automate the dispositioning and recording of the results of the call, then we can give them back another 25 to 30%. If we can do that, we can have more time actually spent on actual selling and engagement interaction processes. Here's another statistic that really just blew me away. I was very surprised to see this. But if you think about it, it makes sense. When we do make those calls, when we do make those determinations on, let's call these folks, let's call this prospect, we are actually calling on a random basis, and 50% of the folks we're calling are totally unqualified, have no ability to buy. They're just flat out poor prospects for the solution under consideration. And it makes sense that this is the case. There's really no stratification or rank ordering of one account versus another account versus a third account. So what we have found here is that, if you can focus on the right 50% and defer on the other 50%, obviously your hit rate, your success rate, your progression rate is going to be much greater. So the real question is, how do you do that? How do you sort of shuffle the deck and keep all the face cards and take out, the 2s and 3s, just to give an example there. And what we have found is, again, through our machine-based learnings, we can identify the very best prospects, we can move them to the top of the queue, and we can actually resort that queue hourly in order to keep us focused on the very best prospects with what selling time we have hour by hour throughout the day. So that's a great opportunity to eliminate that blind spot. Hopefully when you guys see this statistic, you'll scoff at it and say, hey, my team is hitting at a much higher quota achievement rate than this statistic indicates. But our research indicates that only 52% of sales reps actually achieve quota on an annual basis. So, roughly half are not hitting quotas, what that tells you. And that is a lot of sort of poor performance that is affecting your overall sales result. When we look at this as a blind spot, if we could even move that up to 60 or 65%, I think the improvement on your top-line selling results, the revenues achieved, would be considerable. What we have found is that hitting quota is obviously achieved through a number of things. It's certainly salesperson skill, it's the product marketing support, it's the business development efforts, and even to a degree a bit of luck. But without a question, it's the salesperson's skills and also their makeup, be it persistence or tenacity, that allows them to achieve at a higher rate than maybe a non-quota-based attainment salesperson. So as we look at that blind spot and the opportunity there, we see that as something that needs to be addressed at the point of hire. As you're looking at candidates, there's got to be a more intelligent way to discern, what are the proper characteristics to have within our sales team, what are the characteristics that determine or indicate as a leading indicator sales success. So we have utilized, again, our neurolytic techniques to try to identify, what is the composite of a salesperson at an individual organization. So we do this, on an individual basis, and we're looking for, what do those top performers have in the way of characteristics that are indicative of future success. So we look at things like empathy, like persistence, number of different sort of variables that factor into determining success, and we can actually score and predict the likelihood of quota achievement for salespeople based upon what we've seen among TOPS performers. All right, guys, I hate to just bury you with all these statistics. I feel like an economist, but last statistic to share with you is what we found sales groups selling, not selling, but providing to their teams in the way of annual investment. And this is not too surprising. I mean, having been in sales for over 20 years, I get it. I mean, there's not a lot of technology spend that usually is allocated to the salesperson, beyond maybe a Salesforce license. What typically is invested in the sales team each year is a little bit of sales training. Maybe you do Miller-Heiman or something of that sort as part of your annual investment in your sales team. And that works out to about $24,000 invested per salesperson. That is, I think a statistic that we're going to see quite a bit of change in. If you look at investing in that salesperson, if you took that same $24,000 and put it into sales enablement tools, I think the payback would be a lot more dramatic. Typical sales training, sort of retention of knowledge goes away within 3 weeks at a rate of 60 to 70% runoff. So that sales training, while it's great for the first week or two, it's pretty fleeting once you're back out into the battlefield, trying to make use of it sort of in flight. So I think reallocating budget and investment into technology may be a far better investment as far as trying to derive better performance out of the sales team that you have in place. So just, finishing up on the blind spots, hopefully, some of that was informative and maybe give you some food for thought as you look at your own operations. But what we see, sort of in the 5-star operations that we do review, and there are a number of them out there these days, these are the characteristics, as you might expect, of the top performing sales operations. First of all, they're putting out quality content on a consistent basis. If you can do that, you can basically, attract the bees with the honey. There's great opportunity to pull leads into your site on a consistent quality basis if you have good content. People want good content. They're looking for it, and it also creates credibility within your organization as far as how that lead might perceive you. We've covered this, responding to those leads that do hit your website or even your inbound call center within a 5-minute time frame or less. Again, It's a speed to lead world out there. There are other competitors, so being in touch in a timely way is a huge leg up as far as best of breed. Having an actual formalized lead qualification and mapping process is a fantastic best practice trait that we see amongst our top performing sales organizations. If you want to take it a step further, we even recommend that you provide recording of those interactions, so that if marketing wants to know exactly how the qualified opportunity call took place and what the sequence was and what the comments made were, they can actually do that research offline by listening to a review of that call. Here's a point that's huge, and I know we haven't really spent too much time on it today, but if I could leave you with one sort of parting thought amongst all the information we've shared, it would be that you should look at your sales organization and consider revising the model that you're making use of. If you are using a generalist model where folks maybe in the field take a lead from cradle to grave, unless you're selling a very straightforward and simple solution, you're missing out on optimizing your sales production. We have seen time and again in thousands of sales organizations that if we can have a specialist model, that is somebody on the inside that does the qualification and early stage selling and then passes those qualified leads to the sales closer, maybe the more specialized field person, you're going to get a much greater result. You're going to get a lot more production, and you're going to get that production at a much lower cost. Next point is something that we're seeing in many of our shops these days, and that is having that consistent measurement and metrics, tracking your business on an analytic basis, sort of to point to the book and the movie Moneyball, looking at the numbers to tell the story, trying to project where improvement can be gained by refining a process or even, a procedure or a person. You can't do that if you don't have objective data within your CRM solution. So to the extent you can receive consistent updates and ensure that you have Salesforce adherence across your whole sales team, you're going to move to having that information and that data in your CRM. We've talked a little bit about providing real-time feedback to the team. Again, we feel that gamification and gamification standings boards within your selling operation or just within their Salesforce frame is a fantastic tool for keeping people focused and giving them real-time feedback on a motivational basis. Finally, if we can have good data, if we have a good database and we understand what's happening on an objective basis, we've got relevant statistics on all of our sales interactions, then we can then sort of take it a step further and understand, what the most successful salespeople are doing on a daily basis. If we know what their approach is and how they're optimizing their sales result, we can basically then identify a pattern. Maybe they know just inherently to call certain accounts at certain times of the day. Maybe they know inherently to do meetings and emails at different times of the day when people aren't available for calls. Those are sort of small nuances that you'll find as you look across top performers and find what they're doing that's maybe a little bit different from the rest of the sales team. And then finally, if you can, get to that level of sophistication, not many top-performing sales organizations have even made this move yet, but making use of predictive analytics to project and be prescriptive with the best approach on all of these selling mechanisms is sort of what I would consider nirvana out there as far as the very top of the top sales organizations. If you have gotten to the point that you've incorporated predictive analytics, then you are definitely in the minority out there. There's a huge opportunity to take advantage of machine-based learning and corollaries that you can basically learn from as it relates to your buying population, as well as how your sales team can perform best. And we've sort of touched on a few of the different opportunities to do that within our platform as far as Neuralytic capabilities are concerned. So with that, hopefully I've given you a few ideas, a few things to consider as you look at your own sales operation. Let's go ahead and open it up for question and answer. We've actually got the ability for you to submit questions over to us, and if you guys would like to take a moment and pass us anything that might be a question as it relates to the overview, we'd be happy to give our best shot at answering those. Well, thank you, folks. We really appreciate the opportunity to get together with you. Hopefully we've imparted a couple of worthwhile thoughts as far as improving your sales organization. Hopefully your organization isn't necessarily suffering from all 9 of our top 10 challenges, but hopefully we've given you the opportunity to think about it a little bit more and hear some other solutions that have been utilized by top performing companies. And as you might expect, we'd welcome the chance to help you further. Again, Inside Sales is in the business of providing sales acceleration solutions. So if there's ever the opportunity for us to have a look at your operation and try to share some solutions in order to improve your selling results, we would welcome that opportunity. So thanks again, everybody. We really appreciate this time together.